Yeah, no, actually, I want to ask you about your work on the Maṇḍala principle as well as the Guru principle, but maybe later. So let's discuss the Maṇḍala principle as you approach it, especially in relationship to Buddha nature. Is it really reflecting like the traditional ideas of Maṇḍala? You know, even Buddha nature gets the term Maṇḍala especially in the Nyingma Tantras. I think we have like Shiju Rangshin Lingyu Dvikil Kor, the naturally spontaneously established Maṇḍala as a epithet for Buddha nature. Nangsit Shirshingi Kilkor, the sort of the self-established or self-born Maṇḍala of appearance and existence, also referring to the ground nature that is Buddha nature. So when you talk about Maṇḍala principle in your practice and programs, what do you mean? How do you approach
it? It's based on that very Shentong view of there is the reality with all its detail and complexity that is non-graspable, and it's seen by every being according to their own blinkers or their own vision. So it's based on that basic Buddha nature, which includes everything. It isn't just beings, it's everything. There's nothing, you could call it totality, which is a fantastic, you know, totality means that you can't see it from outside itself because you're in it too. So one could talk a lot about that. But the way I introduce it is something more practical, actually, given that we in the West are trying to practice in our everyday life. We're not spending a lot of time doing shamatha and vipassana, but we are having to live our life. I find the way Trungpa Rinpoche teaches Maṇḍala principle and the way Rigzin Shigpo, that's my husband that I taught alongside for a long time, the way they're teaching it, especially Rigzin Shigpo, that it's actually something quite practical about what, let's call it my own personal Maṇḍala, my own personal world. And whether you've got a Rangtong view or a Shentong view, you still have to relate to your world. And even if you don't understand emptiness, you can still relate to your world. And that helps you to understand how your whole world is connected as a whole, all of a piece. It's not in bits. It's not something that's going to break up into bits. It's actually something I can relate to by being much more awake and aware and present in the moment. It presents itself as a whole, and then it presents others as a whole, and it presents a kind of connection, which I call a heart connection, of a meaningfulness of that whole, even though when I analyze it, I can't make it make any sense. If I don't analyze it, I can be a better person in all sorts of ways, especially about that where I end and another person begins, and how that actually is a very alive place. So that's the sort of approach. Maybe it gives you a bit of an idea.
Very complex, but I can,
but we do
you can get a little feel of it.
We do it all the time, very simply, don't we? We simply, our life is like that. It's so complicated, and yet we can relate to it so simply. Like moving my hand is so complex, but I do it so simply. So something like that.
So that's all very close to a mind-pointing instruction, which I believe you also do in your programs, directly, of course, relevant to Buddha nature as well. So is it in your programs also pointing out the Buddha nature in the disciples, in the students?
I think that's what we're doing, basically, but rather than putting it as a kind of grand one-off event, which, you know, ultimately probably is, but we're approaching it in we're spiraling around it and getting little glimpses of something, and really wondering about our experience, and that it can't actually anything, you can't really pin anything down, but that doesn't make it disappear, and it doesn't make it meaningless. but you can't grasp it, and the less you try to grasp it, the simpler you are. The simpler you are, the more relaxed you are. The more relaxed you are, the more the Buddha qualities manifest. And that's, everybody's experiencing it at some level or other.
Yes.